Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Rebekah Roberts.
And I'm Yochanan Elrom.
In our top story, Israel has become the first country to recognize Somaliland as an independent state. In 1991, this region, located in the Horn of Africa, declared independence from Somalia, and now it aims to join the Abraham Accords. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar signed Israel's declaration, and Netanyahu spoke with Somaliland's President Abdirahman Mohamed Abdullahi. Netanyahu said the two countries have a seminal and historic friendship. He said, "We intend to work together in economic fields, agriculture, and in the fields of social development." Abdullahi confirmed that Somaliland would join the Abraham Accords in a step toward regional and global peace. The United Nations Security Council convened an emergency session after 21 mostly Muslim and African countries condemned the move.
U.S. President Donald Trump ordered a series of military strikes against ISIS in Nigeria in response to the radical Islamic terror group's merciless attacks on Christians in the West African country. Trump warned the Nigerian government after it failed to protect the Christian community, and last month he ordered the Pentagon to begin planning military actions to curb the persecution of Christians. Nigeria's Office of Foreign Affairs confirmed it worked with American forces, providing intelligence on ISIS cells that targeted Christians. President Trump confirmed that the U.S. military carried out numerous strikes on ISIS targets and warned that the United States of America will not allow radical Islamic terrorism to prosper.
Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian says that his country is in full-fledged war with America, Israel, and Europe. In an interview published on Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's official website, Pezeshkian warned that Tehran is stronger now than it was during last year's 12-day war. He said if the U.S. and Israel choose to strike Iran, they will naturally face a more decisive response. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was in Florida last week, briefing President Trump on Iran's attempts to advance its nuclear and ballistic weapons programs, which pose a grave and immediate threat to the Jewish state.
Jerusalem is investing tens of billions of dollars in developing an independent weapons industry. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu confirmed the approval of $100 billion to be spent over 10 years to build a local Israeli munitions industry. The plan is to reduce the Jewish state's dependence on other nations, including friendly countries. In the aftermath of the genocidal Hamas attacks on October 7, 2023, the United States, the United Kingdom, and Germany restricted weapon sales and deliveries to Israel as it was being attacked on multiple fronts. Netanyahu vowed that Israel would invest in a multi-year plan to free Israel from dependence on external purchases. This new program will pave Israel's path towards military independence.
Italian police have announced the arrest of 7 people suspected of raising millions of euros for Hamas. The individuals ran charities claiming to collect money for humanitarian purposes, but actually sent over $8 million to the Iranian-backed terror group in Gaza. Italian officials say that some of the money went to individuals involved in terror attacks. The Italian Interior Ministry released a statement saying this operation lifted the veil on behavior and activities which concealed support for and participation in terrorist organizations.
The United Nations is spending tens of millions of dollars annually on anti-Israel activities. Danny Danone, Israel's ambassador to the UN, said his office has identified $100 million earmarked for activities against the State of Israel in the UN's 2026 operating budget. This includes a whopping $86.5 million to UNRWA, the scandal-ridden Hamas-linked United Nations Relief and Works Agency. Danone's office also discovered $4 million allocated to entities acting as Palestinian advocacy organizations in the world body. Danone said it's a shame that so much money is dedicated to activities against Israel instead of going to places that really need the investment.
Media personality Tucker Carlson has been named Anti-Semite of the Year by the U.S.-based Stop Anti-Semitism organization. The group's director, Leora Rez, said Carlson promoted divisive, hate-filled, and dangerous discourse and has interviewed a number of figures sympathetic to Hitler. The group said Carlson is using his influence to incite hatred and normalize anti-Semitism. Carlson has accused Jewish Americans of dual loyalty and Christian Zionists of betraying their faith by supporting Israel. Stop Anti-Semitism said that Carlson uses his large following on social media to spread false statements and anti-Semitic narratives, and it named him the worst anti-Semite of the year.
Israel's civil administration, known as COGAT, launched major renovations at Rachel's tomb near Bethlehem to improve roads and infrastructure leading to the Jewish matriarch's shrine. COGAT said this project is the most extensive renovation of the tomb to date. It aims to improve safety and accessibility while preserving the sanctity of the site. Rachel's tomb is a symbol of prayer and the deep connection of the Jewish people throughout generations. Authorities stress that the extensive investment in infrastructure and security reflects our commitment to preserving the site, making it accessible to worshipers, and ensuring the safety of visitors.
The Israeli space industry has officially launched the National Research and Development Laboratory, which will allow local tech companies to access space technologies. The program, called Access to Space, has a 60 million shekel or $19 million budget. It will provide Israeli startups, companies, and research institutions with access to space technologies at subsidized rates. Israeli Minister of Science and Technology Gila Gamliel hailed the program, saying the National Laboratory is a strategic milestone in strengthening Israel's technological sovereignty in space.
Palestinian extremists are being blamed for torching a Christmas tree and a nativity scene outside of a church in the mostly Muslim town of Jenin last week. Israel's Ministry of Foreign Affairs released a statement saying attacks on Christians, their sites, and symbols are unacceptable. Jenin falls under the jurisdiction of the Palestinian Authority and has become a hotbed of Islamic extremism. Christians in the area frequently report acts of intimidation and abuse. Israel continues to work to protect all faiths and has become a haven for Christians in the Middle East. Rebekah has more on that.
Yes, Yochanan, the Christian community of Israel continues to grow and thrive, and the Jewish state remains the only country in the region where Christians live with full rights in total freedom. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu released his holiday greetings to the Christians of Israel last week, saying Christian pilgrims are embraced with open arms and are deeply appreciated. This was confirmed by a new report released by Israel's Central Bureau of Statistics. The report reflects that Christian communities in Israel are growing and thriving in the Jewish state. CBS noted that there are now more than 184,000 Christians living in Israel.
Turning to sports, and Jewish baseball players from around the world are suiting up to play for Team Israel at the upcoming World Baseball Classic. Baltimore Orioles pitcher Dean Kremer told the Jewish News Syndicate that wearing the blue and white uniform of Israel is especially meaningful as anti-Semitic attacks on the Jews have skyrocketed. Spencer Horowitz, an infielder for the Pittsburgh Pirates, said rising anti-Semitism made him want to play for Israel even more. Both players are veterans of the 2023 Israel team and have secured an automatic bid for this year's games in March, where Israel is set to face off against the Dominican Republic, the Netherlands, Nicaragua, and Venezuela in Miami, Florida.
The Israeli Airports Authority announced that 18.4 million passengers traveled through Ben Gurion Airport last year, reflecting a 33% increase over 2024. Foreign carriers have resumed service to the Jewish state, and Tel Aviv has reemerged as an international travel hub. Sharon Kedmi, the chief executive officer of the IAA, said the 2025 statistics illustrate a clear return of Israeli aviation to the center of the international map. Airport officials are preparing for these numbers to continue to increase. Experts believe that upwards of 22 million passengers will travel through the Jewish state this year.
That concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. We're here in our beautiful studio in Jerusalem. My guest today is Dr. Petra Heldt. She's a professor at the Jerusalem University College. Dr. Heldt, thank you for being on the show.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You are a specialist in Christianity here in the land and the wider Middle East, and there's a lot of misinformation going on. First of all, can you tell us about how are Christians treated in Israel?
Oh, in Israel, I'm living here for a long time. I can say from my own experience, it's just wonderful. It's free. We have the same right like everybody else. We have free access to anything. All our jobs are free, possible to get at the university, at hospitals, at pharmacies, at buses. You just name it. And at the Knesset, whoever wants to have the kind of job as a Christian in Israel is free to have it. We have altogether 1.9% of the population that is Christian. It's not overall much, but it's significant, and we are recognized in Israel as a minority group, which is very nice. Of the 178,000 Christians here in Israel, most of them are Arab-speaking Christians. They belong to the Greek Catholic community. They are something like 50% of the population, of the Christian population, and something like 30% of the Christian population are Greek Orthodox. So amongst the Greeks, the old traditional church, we see that this is a majority of the Christians, but there are many others as well.
In Israel, it's known that the Christian population is the only Christian population in the Middle East that grows every year instead of decreases.
Absolutely.
Yet around the Middle East, it's a different story. Can you tell us about that?
We are growing every year in number, but in the rest of the Middle East, it's just different. So if you go to Syria, there just from the last year, from 1.5 million Christians, they are down to 440,000. And there is constant persecution, uneasy life, everyday life. There's no equal right whatsoever with the Muslim population. And the persecution is real in schools, on the street, etc. If you go to Egypt, it's a very similar situation. There, the Christians are actually something like 15 million people. It's the biggest Christian community in the Middle East. And on paper, they have the same right as the Muslim population. But in fact, this is not the truth. It's not true, because President Sisi gives in public great support to the Christians. It is true, but on everyday level, it's not the same. They don't get permission to build houses, to build churches. There are constant abductions of especially women and children, and they are forced to marry those who abduct them, especially in Upper Egypt. It's a very big problem. So there is no equal right. So if you go to other countries like Lebanon, it's the same thing. It used to be majority Christian, but today we have something like 30% Christians, if at all.
It's also that Christians are under attack, not just in the Palestinian Authority and not just some of the places you talk about, but there's been a real systematic attack of Christians. Going back to Syria, for example, Christians actually had to call Israel to say, come save us, and we had to intervene because of this. Why isn't there more of an outcry?
This is a very, very good question. People don't understand that Christians and Jews, if I may say, are under the same threat. That is a threat of jihad. And what jihad means, we just saw on the 7th of October in Gaza, in the Gaza kibbutzim. So this is what Christians suffer constantly. They do not have a coherence within their own societies, and they don't have a government in their Middle Eastern countries. They don't have a militia. They don't have public relations support. So therefore, they don't get their message out that much.
For the first time in history that I've noticed, there's a president of the United States, President Donald Trump, who's trying to do something about this. He made a statement to Nigeria that if you allow the Christians to continue to be massacred in numbers, we're going to intervene. Do you think that's a real threat?
In Nigeria, for sure. I mean, it is a real threat, and we are very grateful to President Trump because, as far as I can see, is one of the few, if not the only, head of a state who really, really does something in order to save Christians. In Nigeria, in the first part of 2025, there are something like 7,000 Christians were killed, and it is going on and on. We know about it, and the information is there, but people don't take note. They don't get the information into the everyday media. There are no demonstrations in the street, and probably because we have a majority interest in Islam in Europe and also in some parts of the rest of the world, where Muslim factions are very strong in bringing out their interests, which is jihad. And they don't call it jihad, they call it in any other word, and people don't understand. In the West, they don't understand. So in Africa, and like in the Middle East, Christians understand very well what it means to live as a minority under Islam.
Dr. Heldt, there are literally tens of millions of people watching this show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
Well, I think we have to stick to the truth. Please look at the truth of the reality of Christians living in the Middle East, and there's only one way to survive: by hooking up with Israel, getting cooperation, being cooperative with Israel, and help Israel to have a good image abroad, and thereby you will help the Christians to survive in the Middle East.
Thank you, Dr. Heldt, for being on the show. And thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.
And now the truth from Zion.
Iran's relationship with Europe is shaped by trade, diplomacy, and threat. On paper, they are partners, but in reality, Iran is using Europe economically, politically, and strategically, while pursuing goals that threaten the stability of the continent. European nations have long sought engagement with Iran. The 2015 nuclear deal, known as the JCPOA, was a major effort to curb Iran's nuclear ambitions through diplomacy. The goal was to create a path for Iran to rejoin the global economy and get relief from crippling sanctions in exchange for inspections, transparency, and clear limits on uranium enrichment. But the deal failed. Iran took the cash, then resumed enrichment. By 2020, Tehran had openly violated key terms and restricted access to inspectors. European leaders expressed concern but kept defending their framework. Meanwhile, Iran built parallel channels. It sold oil through shell companies, front banks, and backdoor deals. Despite sanctions, much of it moved through Europe. European firms were lured by contracts. European governments, especially in the EU bureaucracy, tried to shield the deal from collapse. The result was predictable. Iran got relief, but the West got deception. Iran has also turned immigration into an instrument of pressure. Since 2015, large numbers of migrants from the Middle East and North Africa have entered Europe. Some are genuine refugees. Some are economic migrants, but among them are individuals linked to terrorist regimes and militias. Germany, France, Sweden, and the UK have all documented Iranian activity in diaspora communities, often under the cover of religious centers or cultural associations. In 2022, British intelligence warned that Iran had plotted to kidnap or kill UK-based journalists and activists. Europe has also seen cyber attacks and disinformation campaigns linked to the fanatic Shiite regime in Tehran. Iranian actors have targeted infrastructure, health systems, academic institutions, and independent media. The goal is to gather data, disrupt services, and weaken trust in democratic systems. Iranian state media pushes content across European platforms, using foreign language channels to spread anti-Israel, anti-American, and anti-Western narratives. Meanwhile, Iran continues to benefit from European indecision at the United Nations and other global forums. Votes that could hold Tehran accountable are watered down or delayed. European diplomacy often prefers process over pressure, leaving the Ayatollah and his henchmen room to maneuver. Energy is a major factor. Some European countries are still dependent on Iranian oil or hope to resume purchases if sanctions are lifted. Iran uses that leverage. When negotiations stall, it threatens to cut exports. When its proxies strike Western targets, Tehran denies responsibility and insists on dialogue. The pattern is familiar: create a crisis and demand concessions. European businesses also play a role. Despite U.S. sanctions, several companies have maintained indirect ties to Iranian firms. Tehran uses these links to gain access to materials that support its rogue missile, drone, and nuclear programs. The broader concern is cultural. European societies have welcomed immigrants from across the Muslim world, including from Iran and its allies. Most want opportunity and peace, but some bring the regime's radical ideology with them. Hezbollah supporters march in European cities. Extremist Muslim preachers run schools and prayer centers. Anti-Semitic attacks have increased dramatically in several countries. There is still time to act.
The weak leaders of Europe refuse to fight or confront the threat of Iran. They use dialogue and diplomacy while Iran spreads its terror tentacles.
Several European governments have begun shifting their approach. Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps has been declared a terrorist organization by several national parliaments. Sanctions have been imposed on individuals tied to repression and assassination plots. Intelligence sharing has improved, but coordination remains slow. The truth is simple. Iran's current leadership does not want a normal relationship with Europe. It wants embassies without accountability. It wants to recruit, conduct surveillance, and manipulate from inside Europe's open societies. If Europe continues to believe that dialogue alone can manage this threat, it will be caught off guard again. From Jerusalem, this is the truth from Zion. Up next, shining light from Israel.
Welcome to the City of David. My name is Zev, one of the directors here, and in the next few minutes, we are going to explore 4,000 years of Jerusalem's heritage, which is literally bringing the Bible to life every single day. Let's go have a look. Up until 150 years ago, when people thought, where is the original biblical city of Jerusalem? The city synonymous with people like King David, King Solomon, King Hezekiah, prophets like Isaiah and Jeremiah, there was one answer. Everyone thought it was inside the old city of Jerusalem, surrounded by the iconic old city walls. Now those old city walls only go back about 500 years. Jerusalem goes back some 4,000 years. The original city of Jerusalem, the city of David, would only be rediscovered in 1867 when Queen Victoria of England wants to discover the treasures of the Bible. She sends a man by the name of Captain Charles Warren here to the Holy Land to find those treasures. He comes to Jerusalem and he wants to excavate on Mount Moriah, the Temple Mount. He is unable to, and he says, if I can't excavate on the Temple Mount, I'll excavate near it. And he ends up discovering that the original biblical city of Jerusalem, the city of David, the place where Jerusalem began, is not to be found inside the walls of the old city, but to be found right here in the city of David. Every single day we are unearthing antiquities that show that Jerusalem's biblical heritage, the significance of Jerusalem to Jews and Christians alike, is not simply a matter of faith, but a matter of fact. In 2004, at the southern end of the city of David, there's a road. Beneath the road, there's a sewage pipe, and that sewage pipe bursts. And what happens? The construction crews have to come in and make repairs. The archaeologists are supervising, and they end up discovering a series of ancient steps dating back some 2,000 years, which the archaeologists realized lead down to one of the most significant discoveries for Jews and Christians here in Jerusalem, namely the Pool of Siloam. The historian Josephus says 2,000 years ago, on the pilgrimage festivals of Passover, Pentecost, Tabernacles, you would have had nearly 3 million people going on pilgrimage up to the temple. The Pool of Siloam was the main mikvah, or ritual bath, for those pilgrims to cleanse themselves before their pilgrimage. The archaeologists then wondered, if we know where the Pool of Siloam is at the southern end of the city of David, and the temple atop the Temple Mount a half a mile to the north, how did all those pilgrims make their way up on pilgrimage? So they widen the excavation, and they end up discovering what has been called the most significant archaeological discovery of the last 100 years. Let's go take a look at something not yet open to the public. Follow me. We are standing right now on the ancient pilgrimage road. This is the road that your ancestors and mine 2,000 years ago would have walked on when they went on pilgrimage up to the temple. The road leads from the Pool of Siloam all the way up through the city of David up to the temple on the Temple Mount. Along the side of the road, you can see here the ancient shops and stalls that people on their way up to the temple, maybe they needed a temple offering, here is where they would go to make those purchases on their way up to the temple. Now, the stones you see here are the original flagstones. And you would have had 2,000 years ago, you would have had the sky above our heads. We are standing right now on the biblical superhighway. This was the main thoroughfare in Jerusalem 2,000 years ago as people were making their way down to the Pool of Siloam and back up to the temple on the Temple Mount. Over here, we have a very unique discovery. The only one of its kind found here in Jerusalem. It's found here along the pilgrimage road. This is an ancient podium, soapbox, speaker's corner. If someone 2,000 years ago had a message they wanted to share with the masses, a message they wanted to preach, this is where they would do it from. You can imagine the likes of whom may have stood up here on the podium and walked here along the pilgrimage road. And in just a few years' time, where we're standing here is going to be opened up to the public to literally walk in the footsteps of the Bible. I'm looking forward to hosting you next year in Jerusalem.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Rebekah Roberts.
And I'm Yochanan Elrom, reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Join us again next week for all of your Israel updates.